Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Wrestling Doesn't Make Sense, the show where we talk about pro wrestling and whether or not it makes sense or not. And boy, we are blessed this week. We have both of us have watched the All Elite Wrestling show All Out. I
Mm-hmm.
believe it's the name of the pay-per-view. And I'll be honest with you guys. Um, the last couple of weeks, maybe like the last month or two, I've stopped watching All Elite Wrestling since the Stadium Stampede match debacle. I just wasn't. I'm like, I don't want to watch this anymore. So I stopped watching the show. And then coming up to All Out, I kind of felt bad. John, you know that I've been giving All Elite Wrestling a particularly hard time recently,
Oh yeah, definitely.
mainly because of like just the train wreck that was that. I didn't like that show very much at all, and I don't think that what I've heard about All Elite Wrestling coming out of that show um has changed my mind on it. But I really did think coming into this one that maybe I've been a little bit too hard on them because I haven't, like I said, I haven't really been watching the show. So like, how could I have an accurate judgment on how good the show is, without giving them a proper shake? So I thought, all right, let's watch All Out, and maybe it'll probably be a good show. I was willing to give them the benefit of the doubt because I had been so like unnecessarily hard on them.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched the show. And it turns out I wasn't being unnecessarily hard on them whatsoever.
Not
If
being hard enough.
if anything, I was being incredibly lenient. Because, well, do you remember a couple of months ago I watched an episode of not Nitro, Thunder on the network. It was like an
Yes.
hour and a half, an hour 20, and I asked you to watch it because it was one of the worst wrestling related shows I'd ever seen. Like
Mm-hmm.
wall to wall, none of it made sense. It was all garbage. The wrestling wasn't that good. It was just nonsense, right?
Yeah.
For a long time, that was absolutely the worst pro wrestling show I'd ever seen. But that was like an hour and 20 minutes, you know? All Out was 3 times as long as that. Can you believe that?
Don't remind me.
So I think I might have to change. Now I'm actually like, I kind of want to go back and watch that episode of Thunder again. That's how bad All Out was. And I don't want to, we're going to talk about this for an hour, but I'm going to say right off the bat, did not like this show. I did not care for it. So the first match, which was originally going to be on the show, and then it was going to be on the pre-show, and then they moved it back to the main show, was the Tooth and Nail match.
That's correct.
Moved to the from the pre-show back onto the main show because Tony Khan saw a cut of this match and said, "That's so good, we can't throw that on the pre-show. We got to put that on the main show." That's what he said. All right, that's what this guy in charge of this wrestling company said. And trust me, we're gonna hear more from Tony Khan later on. So let's all remember that they've all put their eggs in that basket. This match was Big Swole versus Britt Baker
Mm-hmm.
in a dentist's office.
Yes.
John, what's your favorite? And you can't use this match, but what's your favorite pro wrestling match that happened inside a dentist's office?
I can't think of any more.
Really?
Yeah.
Boy, that is surprising. Why do you think that it's never been done before?
I think it's just a lack of imagination.
There's so many reasons why it hasn't been done before. One is a lack of imagination. Two is why would they? Why they have a wrestling ring, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where the majority of the wrestling happens. Why? Here's a wacky idea. Why not do the wrestling in there?
Well, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here and
You
say
better play devil's advocate because I will have an answer for this, Mr. Devil's Advocate.
I'm pretty sure the only reason this was made a tooth and nail match rather than a proper match in the ring was because Britt Baker still isn't 100% cleared to return to the ring.
Mm-hmm.
So this was probably the alternative to kind of get some kind of payoff to the big angle that they've been running for weeks and weeks and weeks. And, have some sort of conclusion on the show where they could actually duke it out and get Big Swole the big win that she's been building up to. So that's what I assume.
Okay, does this feel like a big win?
Well, I mean, it feels like a win, but
Right. Does it feel like the cultivation of a feud?
kind of. Like, I mean, considering all the antics that they've got up to, and
You
like,
really think that that's how this feud ends?
I mean, I hope so.
But they're gonna be like, well, you beat me in the dentist's office, so I guess that's good enough. Like what? They really could like if Britt Baker wasn't gonna be ready in time for the match. Here's a wacky idea: don't have the match. Like if the person involved in the match is injured, right? Maybe another wacky idea. Maybe take the time to wait until they're ready to go before you start. I mean, they have like fucking Britt Baker has her lackeys, right? She has Reba and who else? Is Penelope Ford one of her lackeys?
Well, not really, but
Right. Well, why couldn't they have made a deal where like that was what it was and had a handicap match between Big Swole against those two people?
because they've already done that.
Well, that's their fault. Like, how are you supposed? Like, wouldn't it have made like it doesn't make any sense to have Britt Baker fight this girl now when she's not ready to fight?
Well, the thing is, she's almost ready to fight, which is why she's healthy enough to do it in this kind of ridiculous cinematic style, but not to do it in a ring where she's, getting put through her paces and whatnot.
I mean, that does not sound like a great excuse.
No,
No.
there you go.
Oh. So somebody saw this and said, "That's so good. We we gotta make people pay money for this." That opened the show.
I know it's a weird choice. I mean, such a cold open, like in front of, well, you can't hear any crowd. You can just hear some really like embarrassed sounding commentary from
Oh,
JR and co. But yeah,
yeah. And I will probably get onto the commentary later, or should we talk about it now?
yeah, let's do it.
At first I saw JR coming out, and one thing I noticed about the show before, maybe it was like must have been the summer stadium stampede or whatever.
Mm.
Like they all seemed to be having a great time. All the commentators were getting along. Like Tony Schiavone and JR, they were cracking jokes and having fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I quite liked that. I thought that was very sweet. That these two guys they're pros for years, and they're just like now they're in a comfortable position. They're having a good time, right?
Yeah.
That's nice, but that's also not what I want from a wrestling commentator, right? Like it's nice to see Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross having a drink together. That's adorable. But
Mm-hmm.
like this is a pro wrestling show. JR used to be one of the most expressive voices in the business. That's why people loved him, because he got so passionate and he was so like he knew what he was talking about. He was excited about the business. He was excited to watch the shit that happened, right?
Yeah.
Did he seem excited about any of the shit that happened on All Out?
No, I mean more confused about most of it than anything else.
Do you blame him?
Not at all.
What the fuck was any of that? Tony Schiavone, like, happy to be there, but I'm like, all right, fine, but you're not really adding a whole lot. You're just kind of like, wow, look at that move. How much does that guy weigh? I don't know. I don't even mind Excalibur, because at least he's a voice. He says stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't know, man. It wasn't great commentary, was it?
No, and like JR didn't really do himself any favors later on as well when he made the crack about Anna Jay having a wardrobe malfunction, which was sort of poorly phrased and a terrible attempt at making a joke, but yeah.
Yep. So far we've got a cinematic match to start the show.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got commentators who don't seem like they care about being there.
Mm-hmm.
Which combined sounds like a terrible start to your show. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm exaggerating or if I'm lying or if I'm going too far, feel free to stop me. At any time. Like all I can tell you is what I saw, right?
Yep.
So I did not like the first match at all because I'm not a big fan of cinematic matches, right?
Yeah.
But hey, I'll put that aside. That was one match. We still got 8 to go, right? Um, things could like they should easily pick up, right? So what was the second match?
The second match was the Jurassic Express versus the Young Bucks.
Oh, okay, right. So when I started watching this match, I don't like the Young Bucks. This is well known. This is common knowledge to everybody. Even the Young Bucks know this, which means that in a week's time they're gonna make some stupid fucking joke about it on their Being the Elite show, because that's what they do. They're cool and edgy. So at first I'm like, I don't like the Young Bucks, but like Jungle Boy looks good and he moves around the ring really smoothly.
Hmm.
I like Jungle Boy. I like him. Luchasaurus, I'm like, he seems pretty good too. He's a big guy, but he can do some fun things. Those two as a team, like I kind of dig that. So let's see how this goes, right? So I was
Hmm.
pretty high on this match to begin with, but then like by I don't know what point it was, probably about the halfway point, it just turned into garbage.
You think?
Yeah, dude, that match, it just turned into like a typical Young Bucks, like nobody's selling nothing, and it's just spots and shit's happening for no reason. And I'm like,
Mm.
this sucked. Like at first, I'm like, hey, we're watching a tag match, and by the end of it, I'm like, now I'm watching a Young Bucks match. It just no. And like I said at the start, I was starting to get into it, but like, and I don't know what point it was, but at some point, just everything went to shit, and I'm like, this is not good. I did not I did not enjoy that one either.
Well, yeah, I kind of agree that it definitely felt like a typical Young Bucks match. Like, because that was the thing that kind of got me about it was the announcers were kind of trying to sell the Young Bucks as being more aggressive and like having a bad attitude and more intensity and stuff. And to me, it just looked like they were, wrestling the same as they always do, but just with like scowls on their face. And so it's like, I couldn't really see any difference there. Like the action wasn't really matching up with the kind of angle they were trying to sell. But like I can't really get my head around why this was added to the pay-per-view in the first place. Like,
Right.
yeah, okay, so Young Bucks and Jurassic Express beat SCU and Private Party on Dynamite to like earn this pay-per-view match. But why though? It's like pay-per-view should be about rivalries or, title shots or, big matches or dream matches even. Whereas this was just completely thrown together for no other reason than to stick the Young Bucks on the card and give them a 15-minute match. It's like,
Right.
what's the point?
Right. Another thing we should make clear: all of these matches went on way too long.
Mm-hmm. Oh
Every
yeah.
single one of them was like 5 to 10 minutes too long,
Mm-hmm.
which is ridiculous. I have heard like people. Me and Corey actually had this conversation about um how short a lot of the WWE matches are on television compared to All Elite Wrestling. And I'm like, well, I think that you can tell a good story in 3 minutes, right?
Mm.
Because sometimes with a 3 minute match, the story isn't supposed to be, both of these guys can go out there and work 20 minutes. Like, there's a different story to be told with a 3 minute match that can get people over and then can work. And WWE, to their credit, most of the time don't give away all of their 5-star matches on their free TV.
Mm.
But even when you get to their pay-per-views, like, the shit makes sense, and the matches that are supposed to go long usually are the ones that go long,
Yeah.
right? But the ones leading up to those matches aren't, not every match has to be a half an hour.
Yes, exactly.
And I don't think these guys get that because, and this is probably going to be a theme throughout the whole night, but one thing that I felt like from watching this whole show was that I thought that their last show, whatever it was, Double or Nothing, seemed very like self-indulgent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's very much like them, like, we can do whatever we want, we can get away with this. And that to me was the epitome of this show. It was like those guys that are like, we're untouchable, we can do whatever we want, like we can literally do anything. That's what it felt like to me. And it, to me, it backfired spectacularly, unless that was what they were going for. But I know how many times the WWE have been criticized for saying people would say stuff like, "Oh, the WWE will put on any old crap and you'll still watch it."
Mm-hmm.
That's what this felt like to me. That felt like All Elite Wrestling already throwing up their hands and saying, "We'll put out whatever crap we want and you'll watch it."
Yeah, I mean, it did feel very self-indulgent and
Hmm.
almost a bit like, the lunatics are running the asylum a little bit because they're
Yes.
just, they're trying to get all their crazy spots in, which we'll talk about in the next match as well. Because
Right. Oh
uh,
God.
yeah, like if we look ahead at the Casino Battle Royal,
Mm.
which was, I'm okay with battle royals, but the whole gimmick of the suits and stuff didn't really work for me, and it felt like really thrown together as well. Like in terms of the like the story going into it was like Eddie Kingston had convinced the Butcher and the Blade and Pentagon Jr. and Ray Phoenix to kind of team up and like join forces going into it, and then they didn't really do anything together. Like I'm pretty sure, in fact, Ray Phoenix helped eliminate the Blade as well at one point. So like it just made no sense. But yeah, getting back to like the spots and stuff, like the self-indulgent stuff, the Darby Allin spot in that where he
Oh,
gets
the body bag.
he gets put into a body
Oh.
bag filled with thumbtacks and then power bombed over the ropes onto the ramp,
Oh.
which I guess was like it was a gnarly bump and everything, but it was pretty
Awful.
much it was a throwaway spot there. It was completely forgotten about because like you didn't even get to see Darby Allin crawling out with all the thumbtacks sticking out of him or anything.
Right.
It just moved straight on to like the rest of the match. So it was just, why do it? Why waste that kind of moment in a match like this when you could have saved it for Dynamite or somewhere down the road where it would have actually meant something and you know brought something to the feud that's going on.
Well, number one, it was a dumbass spot to begin with.
Mm.
Like, because Darby Allin's like crawling into the bag as well.
Yeah.
I'm like, you idiots, you fucking clowns, right? But like, but you're right. You're right in that it was a totally wasted spot for a battle royal, because then everything has to stop
Mm.
just so that these fucking clowns can put thumbtacks into a body bag and then put this guy into the body bag and then throw him out of the ring. Just throw him out of the ring. If you could do all that shit, you could have eliminated two other people. Like, right. There's so many like dumb spots, and there's nobody to tell them no. Like they don't like they have producers there, but they don't use them like the WWE did. WWE have been slagged off plenty of time for having the producers like watching the matches too much, but the producers tell the people what to do and what not to do. We talked about this last week with the frog splashes, right?
Yeah.
We were like, people are doing too many frog splashes. You'd think somebody would say something to them, right? That's their criticism. All Elite Wrestling's criticism is you'd think somebody would have told them not to be such fucking idiots all the time. Because then that's why the matches go on fucking 20 minutes, because there's nobody to tell them to stop doing it. Right? That's why dumb spots happen with no reason, because in a battle royal like this, there's no way to properly get the cameras there to capture all the shit you're supposed to capture. You can't draw it out. You can't like get emotion out of it because it's just a dumb spot that happened in a dumb battle royal, right? There's no like you can't get any of the good stuff out of it. Shit just happens because it happens.
Yeah.
And it's just throwaway, and it doesn't mean anything. And that's why when you see spots like this, it's just like this, it's just more bullshit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that I think is highlighted perfectly in what I think is the next match, which we'll get to in a second. I agree with you about the Battle Royale thing. I don't understand the suits. I mean, I understand suits. I play poker, right? But didn't 4 people start in the ring?
I believe it was 5. It was Christopher Daniels, Blade, Ray Phoenix, Trent, and Jake Hager.
Okay, because I thought there was 4 people in the ring when it started, and then they would just keep bringing 5 people out. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. But even as is, I'm like, I get you're trying to make like a Royal Rumble kind of gimmick, but like, I don't know. I mean, like that match. Oh, and fucking Matt Sydal, like.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Bit of
I
a
remember,
Shockmaster moment.
oh Jesus, seeing that you're like, that sums this show up pretty well, doesn't it? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It was just like a string of like, how bad can this show get?
Mhm.
And god damn it, they tried. They were like, we're gonna show you exactly how bad this show could be. So the battle royale was like, it was what it was. Like stuff happened. It got really busy unnecessarily busy near the end
Mm.
because Jake the Snake had a snake in his bag, but then Tully Blanchard was given Sean Spears like brass knuckles or something, and then somebody else was doing something else like, and then that Darby Allin spot and stuff like stuff just started happening.
Yeah.
But like outside of the ring, I'm like, what? Why is all this shit happening? And they're like, Eddie Kingston's afraid of snakes, but then like, it took a long time for Eddie Kingston to even look into the bag.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like that whole bit was such a waste of time. I don't get why people do that all the time in battle royales where they go out to the apron and just dick around.
Mm.
It's a battle royale. Get into the ring. Like what the fuck? They spent so much time outside of the ring where you could easily be eliminated. I'm like, this. I'm gonna say this. This doesn't make any sense, right? So you know, fucking some guy won. Who cares? Lance Archer.
Yeah.
Well, good. Maybe they can build him up again after they fucked him up the first time.
Yeah. Wow.
Right.
Here's hoping.
Well, I mean, they're gonna have to build everybody up again after this shit show. Yeah, that happened. So far, it's not been a great show. I think we can agree.
Yes.
You might have liked, or well, I don't know if liked was the right word, but you might have understood why okay, fuck the Young Bucks match. Forget it.
Yeah.
I was trying to like, it doesn't matter. This show has made me so angry. So the fourth match
Yeah, I think we're on number 4.
was that the Matt Hardy match?
That was the Broken Rules match.
Ah, Jesus Christ. I mean,
Right.
really, all I want to say about this match is Jesus Christ. Everybody's going to understand what I mean. Everybody who's seen this fucking train wreck shit show, and this is further proof of that thing we were saying just a moment ago. That fucking bump that Matt Hardy took, right?
Mm-hmm.
For everybody who hasn't seen it, and I don't know if anybody's listening to this who hasn't seen it, but what happened was, as soon as I saw Matt Hardy stand in a football stadium, I was like, fuck this company. I'm like, the football stadium again, and then fucking Sammy Guevara has a golf cart or whatever the fuck, so he's going to drive down Matt Hardy because Matt Hardy been driving him down the last couple of months. A hilarious storyline, I think we can all agree.
Mm-hmm.
So then they get into like a little like part of the stadium, which is like really like wide open, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing there except one scissor lift and like 2 tables with a sheet over it. What's gonna happen here? You say whatever you want about the WWE, but at least they try to fucking dress that shit up, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, look, it's a concession stand or it's an electric fucking block or whatever. It's not just here's fucking this spot, right? Why didn't? So anyway, Matt Hardy does this really dumbass bump off the scissor lift where he does a DDT to Sammy Guevara, which means that when he jumps off the scissor lift, he's jumping off backwards.
Mm-hmm.
You can't see where he's going. And Sammy Guevara, because of the way a DDT is, his head is tucked under Matt Hardy's arm, so his head lands straight through the table. Sammy Guevara, the man who's supposed to be impacted the most by a DDT off a scissor lift, if this was real, was able to protect himself because he would have seen where he was going to land, and he took the brunt of like the table, so he was okay. But because Matt Hardy couldn't see where he was jumping, he and his head is further back than Sammy Guevara's, he ended up like hitting his head off the concrete.
Yeah, it looked really nasty.
It looked really bad. Again, the WWE, whenever they dress their shit up, they make it like sometimes they make it super clear. Remember like whenever Shane McMahon like fell off the Hell in a Cell and he fell into the announce table and everybody's like, look how padded it is.
Yeah.
Well, at least Shane McMahon didn't die.
Yeah.
Right? Like that was such an unnecessary spot. That was one spot in this stupid match that didn't have to happen, but they did it because there was nobody to tell them not to do it. This is just more like self-indulgent bullshit. Whatever, like, how many times have they said, "Oh, Vince McMahon won't let me do whatever I want to do," And then they do it in All Elite Wrestling, and it sucks ass. And you're like, well, I wonder why. We can slag up Vince McMahon all we want, and we have done. But god dang it, he has a modicum of a sense. He's like, I'm not gonna kill my talent because I need them to be talent, right?
Yeah.
So Matt Hardy takes this unnecessary bump, which was supposed to be one spot in a match full of dumbass spots, and he is clearly concussed.
The way he was lying on the floor with his head just like really stiffly up at an angle, not moving, that was scary.
It was not good. So Sammy Guevara is smart enough, like, walks around, tries to buy some time, and the referee's counting, and they all know that Matt Hardy is fucked up because he can't get back to his feet. But he tries, and the doctor comes over, and the worst bit is when Matt Hardy like tries to get up, and they try to fight.
Yeah.
And Matt's he's swinging punches, and he's missing him by a foot.
And
I'm like, they have to stop this. This is really painful to watch.
It's just common sense. Like, stop the match.
Horrible. It was horrible. So they stopped the match, and I'm like, thank God, that was not good. So Sammy Guevara walks away, and like, you know, we all know that what we watched is an unfortunate spot going wrong, and poor Matt Hardy is like, you know, actually hurt himself and needs, you know, he needs to get checked up. But like, that was an uncomfortable spot, unnecessary spot as it was. You know, I don't think it should have happened, but you know, God bless Matt Hardy. Let's hope he can go to the hospital or whatever. But you know, Matt Hardy tries to see a face by kind of like walking around going, I'm gonna get you, Sammy Guevara. Whatever. What a shame that they had a dumbass unnecessary stipulation that said if Matt Hardy loses, then he's out of All Elite Wrestling forever. Because Matt Hardy was, I think, really he was unable to answer the 10 count. He was just kind of down. I think if they called it a no contest.
Yeah.
At that point, but it was pretty clear that Matt Hardy lost, right? It was, you know what I mean? Like, if he couldn't fight the guy, then he lost. So, whatever. And then they cut back to the announcers who have to vamp for like 5 minutes, which is further proof that this was 100% legit. There was a tiny part of me that was like, if this is a work, I'm gonna kill everybody. Fuck this company. But so clearly it was real, because they were vamping for a bit, and then they cut backstage after about 5 minutes.
Well, it's only about 2 minutes.
Was it 2 minutes?
Yeah,
not even. So like, Matt Hardy gets the bump. It looks painful. There's a minute or two where the referees aren't sure what to do and the doctor's not sure what to do, and then they call off the match, right? So that's about 2 minutes after the bump.
Yeah.
But by this point, at least, Matt Hardy's kind of like, he's talking again, you know?
Yeah.
He's kind of like, where are you, Sammy Guevara? He's kind of like walking, but it's still like only like 2 minutes after that bump. So the referees vamp for, let's say, 2 minutes, all right? We're now 4 minutes after this horrible concussion happened that we all saw. We all saw the effects of that. Then they cut back to Matt Hardy backstage, and then they go, oh, you know what? We're just going to restart the match.
Ugh.
And I was like, well, now is the time, I think it's safe to say, fuck this company.
Yeah.
That was 100% the worst move they could have done.
Yeah.
Just because Matt Hardy was standing up again is not a good reason to let that match go on.
Apparently they did do some sort of concussion protocol test in that like 2 minutes between the bell ringing backstage and then Matt Hardy coming back out again, which I find hard to believe. Like, is it really like a less than 2 minute test to check if he's still able to go? Like, seriously, what the fuck?
What they do is they waggle their finger in front of his face, and if he can follow with his eyes, they're like, he's good to go.
Yeah. Like,
do you want to check the back of his head for like potential wounds? I'm like, nope, fuck that, send him out. Right?
This is why, like, in football now, they, when any kind of head injury happens, they like say, right, that's it, you're coming off. There's no ifs or buts about it. Like, it's just common sense. Like, you've taken a knock to the head. You were like obviously really groggy for like a minute or two, and we're not taking any chances, so let's get you off. That is exactly the kind of thing they should have done here. Just like, drawn a line under this match and said, fuck it, we'll come back to it another time. Like, Matt Hardy's safety is the most important thing right now, and his health. So let's leave it at that. But instead, they restart the match, and then he, for some bizarre and infuriating reason, they have him start climbing some scaffolding as well, which is so fucking dangerous. The dude's clearly unsteady on his feet, and now they want him to climb some scaffolding, like above the stage, and kind of clearly set up area for Sammy Guevara to fall into. Right. It's just, Jesus, how he didn't die, I do not know.
But the worst, I think well, I don't want to say the worst part about that, because the worst part of that was them restarting that match. That should never have happened. Like you said, it's just common sense.
Yeah.
Like, that blows me away that nobody said that. Don't restart the match. Like, whoever made that call, like, awful. If the doctors waved it off to begin with, they shouldn't be allowed to restart it. That's no. That's not at all the way that should work. But what happens is the match ends. So, like, they do a dumbass spot that's so stupid that it hurts Matt Hardy, but they're so determined to finish this match. You're like, well, hopefully something good happens. No, it's just more dumbass spots. And the way they end the match is pretty much the way the match ended to begin with.
Yeah, essentially.
Only with the roles reversed. Like, you guys, it blew me away. That entire thing blew me away with how terrible it was. You had to finish the match just to do that spot. Are you serious? That's unbelievable. So by this point, I'm like, I am not okay. I am not enjoying myself. Like, that one thing put me off, that Matt Hardy thing. You know, I'm not the biggest fan of Matt Hardy.
No.
But, dude, I felt bad for him. I hope that he wasn't the one that begged to keep going with that match, because that was terrible. Because it didn't lead to anything better. It didn't justify him getting hurt and then coming back, because it was just the same match.
Yeah.
It was awful. So later on, Tony Khan, the man who saw the Tooth and Nail match and thought it was so good it had to be on the main show, said that Matt Hardy went to hospital and they checked him out and he didn't have a concussion.
Yes.
Right. As if that is some kind of fucking, well, then it's all right then. Then you made the right call. Good for you. Like, he did some dumbass conference call where he was like having to go to the WWE for their stupid new policy where people can't, make money on the side.
Yeah.
Which is a podcast in itself, really. And I don't agree with that. But, like, doesn't it feel a little bit hypocritical to be like, our company would never do that, but I tell you what our company will do. Fucking make our guys get concussed and start the match again? Because I'll tell you, if those are the stipulations, I'll tell you which company I'd rather work for. That is unbelievable for him to say that Matt Hardy didn't have a concussion. Well, he had something. Something happened. He hurt his head, right? Shouldn't have been out there like, oh, it's not concussion. Whatever. Who cares? If Matt Hardy got his hand cut off, and then they took him to the hospital, they made him finish the match, and then they took him to the hospital, and Tony Khan goes, well, it wasn't a full amputation, so good to go, Matt Hardy. Not the way it works. Matt Hardy got hurt, and they let that match go on, and then they weren't able to come up with a good excuse as to why that happened. Right?
Yeah, it was a disaster.
Terrible. I'm so angry at these guys. That's the epitome of having nobody in charge to tell them to do better. All of this was avoidable.
Yeah.
None of that had to happen. And we all got to see it live. Well, you didn't see it live, I saw it live. So, already, what are we, 4 matches in?
Yep.
I feel like we're only like a third of the way through the show.
I know.
So it's not good so far.
But on the plus side, things do improve because we've got a women's title match between Shida and Thunder Rosa.
I mean, nobody died in this match.
Well, that's a positive for sure.
How bad does your product have to be when that's the good side? At least nobody died. Well, what did you think of this match? Because I thought I was going into it, I was hoping this was going to be the match of the night. What did you think?
I thought it was really, really good. I've not really seen Thunder Rosa before outside of like her appearance on last week's Dynamite. But between that match and this one, I am so impressed with her work, and I'd love to see her like stick around if that's possible. But yeah, she and Shida had a great match. I thought, like, very hard hitting, like pretty much everything looked quite crisp and smooth and everything,
Mm.
and like it surprised me as well that Thunder Rosa was like so dominant for like big stretches of the match. Like she clearly, the story was she'd done her homework and kind of had Shida fighting from underneath, which I think is a role where Shida kind of excels as well, like coming back and having to really work for her victories and stuff. So yeah, I like the whole match felt like well, a welcome break from the shit show that came before it.
I mean, I will agree in that at this point it was clearly match of the night.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and that's unfortunate to say, because the competition up to that point was not, not to any standard of quality whatsoever.
No.
But I thought that, and I like Thunder Rosa. I think her strikes look good. She hits really hard for like a smaller girl, which I like. She has that aggression to her. The match, it wasn't terrible. I didn't think it was like amazing by any stretch of the imagination. But it was fun, and those two guys, they did a good job. I felt like it was a little bit spotty at a lot of points. Like I miss when matches kind of like chained together and everything felt natural. And I don't like that about All Elite Wrestling, in that a lot of their matches just seem like bits.
I don't know. I thought there was psychology in this one, like with Shida's attempts to go for the stretch muffler, like failing at first before finally getting it, and like the fighting spirit and stuff, and
well, like this wasn't even like the spottiest match. You know what I
no,
mean?
no.
I'm not gonna say that about it, because like I said, match of the night so far.
Mm-hmm.
I know I didn't hear it, but I didn't think it was. I really thought it was gonna be a show stealer.
Yeah.
And again, technically it was, but not in the way that counts. But it was still good.
Yeah,
Still a good
absolutely.
match, and that's the kind of match you want for Shida. You want to have somebody like Thunder Rosa come in, who American audiences are more familiar with, and put them against somebody like that. That's a good matchup that works, brings publicity to the NWA. I mean, they need to do a lot more work to get back on track, but decent match so far.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. What was the next match?
So that would be the 8-man tag with the Dark Order versus the Natural Nightmares, Matt Cardona, and for some bizarre reason, Scorpio Sky has been dragged into the babyface side of things. Which I'm happy that he's getting a spot on the pay-per-view, but like, is he not in SCU anymore? Like, are we missing something?
So you've been watching All Elite Wrestling a bit more than I have, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I have a question for you.
Go.
Why is Colt Cabana in the Dark Order?
So Brody Lee's been kind of looking to recruit him for the last couple of months. So Colt isn't technically a member of the Dark Order, but he's someone that they've been interested in bringing into the ranks. But this has been going on for a while now, where Brody Lee's deliberately kind of shown him the good stuff, but kept him away from the bad, like when the Dark Order attack people and get up to their heel tactics and whatnot. So he's tried taking advantage of the losing streak that Colt was on, and I guess in that sense this match kind of worked in that it kind of brought that story to the next stage, I guess, the next chapter, because like with Colt losing and that pissing off Brody, Brody Lee finally shows his like true colors to Colt by shoving him and losing his cool and stuff, and so that sets up for the next part of whatever direction that's going in, which is a good thing. And I'd say like it gave a good spotlight to Dustin Rhodes as well, which at 50 plus years old and however long he's been in the business, I don't know if he really needed that spotlight as much as other people in the match, but I thought he played that role well, and he looks like a genuine TV title challenger as well coming out of this. Like, I especially loved his backstage promo after the match as well, where he was all fired up. So that's something as well. So it's not the greatest match, not by a long shot, but it did accomplish some story stuff that it was meant to do. So I'll give it that.
Are you looking for logic in this show?
I'm desperately looking for logic in this show.
I thought that this was a mess. I did not like it. Why did this one go nearly 20 minutes? Whose idea was that to make an 8-man tag go 20 minutes? Oh, God. It was so boring and just spots and shit happens. And who cares about the Dark Order?
Yeah,
I don't get this at all. They have done such a shitty job with the Dark Order.
I will say they've done
an awful job.
No, they did an awful job, but it's kind of been swinging back around like the last month or so. Like, it's not been brilliant, not by a long shot, but it sort of, I don't know, they don't look as goofy and awful as they did originally.
But that's what I mean, right? Let's just say that for the last month, they've looked like fucking killers, right? Let's, for the sake of an example, say that for the last month, they've looked like killers.
Yeah.
What have they been doing for the 9 months before that? They've been looking like fucking idiots every single step of the way. I said in January, I don't see why anybody would want to join the Dark Order because they've been portrayed as like a bunch of bumbling idiots, right?
Yeah.
And then Brody Lee came in, and then all this other shit happened, and they still look like a bunch of bumbling idiots, right? Nothing at all was going right for the Dark Order. And then suddenly Brody Lee out of nowhere wins the TNT title, and now we're supposed to give a shit about them. And to prove how much of a shit we're supposed to give about this new Dark Order, they lose the next match they have on pay-per-view.
It's all part of the story they're building with Cabana and Brody Lee, though, so...
But it just further proves that they're just a bunch of losers. Like, you have 9 months of them fucking around, and 1 month of them starting to come back up on the rise, and then straight away they lose again. Come on, man. This... You know this. That is awful booking.
Well, I think we're gonna have to agree to disagree with this one, because I think this is just setting stuff up for the future, which I've got no problem with.
How are the Dark Order supposed to be this big dominant stable if they're gonna lose like this? They also lost the fucking match on the pre-show against some fucking bums. I don't even remember what the match was.
Private Party, I believe.
Right, so the Dark Order, now that they're having their month of terror, are now 2-0 at a pay-per-view. This isn't good. Like, I didn't like the story going into it. I didn't like any of this. I didn't like it.
Well,
I didn't like it. But, women's match was good. Let's go to the next match.
So this would be the eagerly anticipated tag team championship match with Hangman Page and Kenny Omega defending against FTR.
Can I just say right off the bat, did you notice what it said on Hangman Page's like little graphic when he came out?
No, I did not.
Cool. You know what the graphic, it'll say like, Hangman Page or whatever, and it'll have their stats underneath it, but then above their name, it'll say a little thing like their win-loss record or something like that.
Yeah.
When Hangman Page came out and he had that little card, I swear to God this is true, or at least it came up on mine. His little message above his name said something. This isn't verbatim. This is something like, "I don't care what it says on the match graphic anymore." I'm like, did he say that, or is that the guy making the graphics saying that?
I am pretty sure that's Hangman Page, who's like been conflicted and whatnot and not having the best time of it lately. So I can imagine he doesn't really give a shit about what it says on there because he's got other stuff to worry about.
Didn't smack up professionalism to me, man. What did you think of this one?
Wow. Jesus Christ, man. I don't know. I can't really put my finger on what went wrong here because it was very similar in terms of like the Young Bucks Hangman Page Omega match, like what they were aiming for by the looks of it. They were going for like a big long epic battle with lots of action and whatnot, and teasing 3 counts and whatever, but like it just did not work at all for me. Like there was the one thing that kind of annoyed me to begin with was like after all this time of like playing up the Hangman Page story and like Omega doesn't know if he can trust him, but like as soon as the match begins they're on the same page and working together as normal, so that whole storyline essentially meant nothing. Then like the when FTR got on the offensive, like it just ground to a halt as well. Like I'm a big fan of their work and I like what they bring to the ring and stuff, but man, it really slowed down and it just felt a million years long. Like it just would not end. And yeah, like it just kept going, and then there's the end with the Omega getting all pissed off and stuff because I just that didn't work for me either. Like Hangman Page didn't cost Omega the match at all. Like it was Omega who hit him with the V trigger, and then not only did he hit him with the V trigger, but like Hangman Page even survived like the spike power driver, the first one. So he did everything he could, and yeah, Omega like storms off and then starts talking about having a clean break and telling the Young Bucks to come with him and stuff, but that didn't make any sense either because the Young Bucks are like trying to cool him down and stuff, trying to make like talk sense to him. When it's like, hang on, these are the same guys who've already kicked the Hangman Page out of the Elite, so what the fuck? Why are they? Why do they care about cooler heads prevailing and stuff when I don't know, just none of it makes sense.
The Young Bucks, who weren't in that match, were in like 50% of the promo before that match, talking about how they didn't give a fuck about Hangman Page and he could do what he wanted and they were over it. So like you said, why are they the ones why are they like, oh, don't worry about it? Why did Kenny Omega do that? You were 100% right. Nothing happened, and then Kenny Omega said, "Fuck you. I've had enough." Enough of what? Didn't do anything. And another thing, right, about this storyline. Why, if you were FTR, why would you before that match tell Hangman and Page, we were just screwing with you. We don't really like you, Hangman Page.
Yeah.
Like, why? That's awful. Why didn't they continue building that, do the match, and then after the match, Kenny Omega is still like, I don't know if I can trust you because you were hanging out with these other guys before this match. I'm still on, I still don't know what the answer is. Even after we've had this match, FTR have won. Was it because of you? Did you do this? Hangman says nothing. FTR get their generic beer that just says beer. Hand one to Adam Page, and then they destroy him. Yeah. After the match and say it was all a ruse. We don't give a fuck about you. Now you don't have Kenny Omega. You don't have us. You don't have anybody. Fuck you. They celebrate with the titles, and then Kenny Omega watches that from the entrance ramp and then walks away. Right? Wouldn't that have been easier?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that have made more sense? Unbelievable. What story is that? Who is that stupid? If you read that in a supervillain storyline in a comic book, you'd be like, this is the stupidest supervillain of all time. I'm just gonna tell you the plan. Here you go. Like, oh my, this match was really long. It was not that interesting, and the ending sucked. They're sloppy looking double pile drivers or whatever. Kenny Omega's just watching the second one.
Yeah.
He just sat there at the outside of the ring just watching it happen. And then he gets huffy at Hangman Page. Fuck. We were all excited about this one.
Absolutely.
Right? Not a single soul going into the show wasn't excited about this match. They were like, this is it. This is going to be the one. But hey, once again, turns out when there's no producers to tell people what to do in a match, they'll just do whatever the fuck they want. And that doesn't always end up the right way, does it?
You know what, as well? I think because of the capacity of Daily's Place only being like 15 or 20% full, whatever it was, like it really lacked an atmosphere as well. So like they were going for this epic match with like lots of, heat spots and then hot tags and things like that, but because there wasn't the crowd there to react to it like, it would under normal circumstances, it all felt really flat, and it just didn't really. It felt like a match which belonged in an arena full of people, whereas this was just in an arena with like a handful of people. It just didn't really work at all.
I mean, maybe, but I just thought it was really boring.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying though. Like, if you at least with the crowd reaction, it can make things like seem artificially more exciting, because at least you're feeding off that noise as well as the wrestlers are. Maybe.
I don't know. Unconvinced. So far, I'm not having a great time with the show. What was next?
Well, you will be glad to hear that it's the Mimosa Mayhem match.
Oh. Will I be glad to hear that? That is, oh my god. So this was the one that I was convinced I wasn't gonna like.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? Guess who was right? Go on. Have a little guess.
Could it be you?
It was me. I was entirely correct. This was an awful match. What did you think about it?
I think awful is a bit strong. It wasn't.
Okay, well, we could agree to disagree again.
The thing is, it wasn't a horrible match, I didn't think, but it wasn't anywhere close to as good as like their previous two matches.
It wasn't interesting.
I think as well, like they made a mistake by announcing that it could finish by pinfall, submission, or being dumped into the Mimosa. Like, because why include pinfall and submission when obviously it's just going to end by someone going into like the Mimosa? Like, don't even bother with pinfalls and submissions, because no one's going to buy it. But yeah, the one thing as well that really stood out to me was Orange Cassidy essentially wrestled this as like a normal wrestler. Like, he wasn't doing any of his typical, spots or any of his, slowed down hands in pocket type gimmick, which is kind of the problem with the feud in general for me. Like, I thought at first it was doing like a good job of elevating Orange Cassidy and, making him into like a bigger star and whatnot, but it's kind of taken him so far away from what made him popular in the first place that I don't know, like, if he can't really go back to that now without it looking like he's regressed. You know what I mean? Like
yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
And on top of that as well, like, Jericho has lost credibility with the feud. So yeah.
Christ. Who looks good in this match? Like, if this is the blow-off match, does Orange Cassidy look good because he threw Chris Jericho in the big vat of orange juice? Like, that doesn't make any. That doesn't build anybody up. That's not a blow. This isn't a blow-off fucking match for a feud. It's the same with the opening match, right, in the dentist's office. It doesn't really make anybody look good if that's the blow-off, because who gives a fuck? That's not what a wrestling match is, right? Like, that's why they used to be able to get away with like gimmick matches like this, like a ladder match, whatever, which would be, good either as like a one-off spectacle or like as a middle thing in a feud, because you can't, if you pick something off a ladder, have you really beaten somebody in a competition of strength? Not really, right? If you just throw somebody into a big vat of orange juice, are you really the better wrestler? Right? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Nobody looks good. Jericho certainly didn't look good. In terms of character and in terms of he has really taken this pandemic off, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah, when he was like sat on the top rope and his gut was kind of hanging over.
Not a pretty sight. This, I mean, if we'd have seen one of these things on a WWE show, we would have been livid, right?
Yeah.
This is just all in a row. This is all on one show. By this point, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. This is awful. What a dumb fucking, what a stupid feud anyway. And the Jericho thinks that this has been a success. Blows me away. Like, what part of this has been a success? Orange Cassidy looks a little bit better than he used to, and Chris Jericho does not at all. And I don't understand why he thought this would be a good idea, and not only that, but he thought that it has been a success. He's like, well, that worked perfectly. I don't know about that, Chris. Gonna be honest with you, I thought this was stupid from the inception, and in delivery it would remain stupid. You are correct in that. Who gives a fuck about the pinfall or submission? We all know that the reason it's a Mimosa Mayhem match is because somebody's going to go into the mimosas, right? That's the point. That shit wouldn't be there because they have to telegraph everything like a bunch of idiots. That shit wouldn't be there if it didn't have a purpose, right?
Exactly.
So obviously that's the only way. So the two of them thought, well, how else are we going to get drama out of this? We have to have pinfalls or submissions. That's how good both of they are at their fucking craft. They couldn't think of a better way to build up suspense during their match. Doesn't that tell you something about the match? Doesn't that tell you that maybe it's not a good idea? This I did not like. What a surprise. I don't know what else to say about that. Fuck it. Let's go to the next. Is the next one the main event?
The next one is the main event.
Oh, thank God. We almost finished talking about this fucking show. The main event was okay. I didn't hate it. I thought as a match it was fine, but as a main event it was not.
Wow, I thought it was very reminiscent of like Stone Cold main events from way back in the Attitude Era, like with the story they were telling with like Moxley supposedly not being as strong in the ring as he is outside the ring and more of a brawler and stuff, and him trying to convince or take the fight to MJF outside the ring at various points. And like even the way it finished as well, with him kind of beating MJF to the proverbial punch whilst Wardlow's distracting the referee. He hits the paradigm shift, which had been banned before MJF can pick up the ring and hit him with it. So like that was something that was very Stone Cold-esque as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it did a decent job of like telling the story that they built up and giving MJF an out as well. So even though he lost, he's got plenty that he can complain about and use to kind of stay credible going forward.
But here's the thing, like right after that, the announcers were like, the commentators were like, well, looks like Moxie's gonna be fighting Lance Archer now. They didn't talk about any of that shit.
No.
They didn't talk about how Moxie essentially cheated and how MJF has it out and that this shouldn't be the end of it. Because if that's the end of it, that sucks. Because there's nothing for MJF, right? I quite like the finish. I do see exactly what you mean about it. It's seeming very much like a Stone Cold Steve Austin angle. I do get that. But I like the finish because it had, like you said, it gives him an out. And it's the kind of thing that you would expect him to kind of like mention on Wednesday night. You know, like MJF's gonna demand that they reverse the decision, yada yada. But like, when's the next show? October?
I believe that's what they announced. Yeah.
So like, you know, that's the kind of angle. I don't know how they're gonna play that through 2 months. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of thing that needs to get resolved relatively quickly. And the announcers just went straight into, well, it looks like Lance Archer is gonna be fighting Jon Moxley. And I'm like, come on, guys. Seriously? Like, that match ended in controversy. They didn't at all like talk about that part. That's the main part of that story. The paradigm shift was banned, and he did it anyway when the referee wasn't looking.
Yeah.
And not one of them could have said anything about that. Are you kidding me? I don't know, man. I liked Moxley's selling in that match. I thought that was good.
Yeah, really
Even after
good.
the match, selling the arm and stuff. You know, I thought that was a good match.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like I said, I just felt like for the main event of that show, and again for the main event of that show, technically it was like the match of the night, really.
Yeah.
But like it didn't seem like the main event match. You know what I mean? And like maybe that was the problem whenever you go through a 4-hour show, the deflation factor. By the time you get into R3, everything after that is a bit of a drag.
Yeah.
Especially when everything before that has been the worst. Right? So by the time we got to the main event, I think everybody was exhausted. And it felt a bit flat. Like, you know, it told a fine story, but the story wasn't properly delivered upon by the people who were supposed to do that, you know?
You know, I think it did its job, really. But like you say, it did fall a little flat just because of everything else that came before
it. So, what overall thoughts?
Well, I think it's safe to say that this might be the worst AEW pay-per-view they put on so far.
I hands down will agree with that. I mean, I am very happy to hyperbole it up and say it's one of the worst things I've ever seen. I don't know if you're willing to throw your hat into the ring with that one just yet, but
no, I think there's enough in there that I could enjoy, even though it wasn't a whole lot. But there was, you know, like the Young Bucks match, I was happy with, or not happy, but I could, you know, I thought it was fine. Even like in the Tooth and Nail match, like Reba's comedy in that was made me laugh a few times. And
John, you're better than this.
I'm not making excuses for AEW because I think they did shit the bed big time with this show, but I don't think it was like the worst pay-per-view of all time, which is something at least.
I mean, I'd be hard pressed to find a worse one. Off the top of my head, I can't think of a worse show.
December
Easily
to
the worst show of
December.
this year.
Oh, yeah, I'd say so.
Without a doubt, the worst show of 2020 from any company that I've seen. Like, I don't know, like, I'm like, I really am speechless at this show because it was like a train wreck of epic proportions for like the whole thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure, yes, there were like a couple of matches that were okay, but like just by and large, like all the way through, like nothing went right. It was just a shit show from start to finish, and I feel really bad for anybody who paid £50 for that because I would demand my money back. I would I am never spending £50 on that company ever again. Like if I had spent £50 on this and £50 on the show before this, the Stadium Stampede match,
yeah,
I'd be out £100. And I'd feel miserable for it. There's a couple of matches on the show that were okay.
Yeah.
But by and large, that was an awful show.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, is there anything else you want to say about this fucking piece of shit?
No, I think we have covered everything pretty much that we can cover.
I think we did pretty good. And we did it in like, you know, a third of the time it took them to do it. Listen, guys, anybody who wants to defend this awful piece of garbage, feel free to do so. We're on Twitter, Wrestling Doesn't Make Sense Podcast. We're here on this show on YouTube. Let us know, send us comments, etc., etc. But anyway, guys, thanks for listening. I guess we'll see you next week. I don't know. Maybe I need some more time to recover. We'll be back next week with some other show that's going to be much more cheerful. I'm going to be less angry. I'm going to put money on that. It's going to be more fun. But anyway, thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.